safer POI on the edge of the map, where less players drop because of less loot. Regardless, the goal is common, but you take a passive approach by looting safely on the side of the map, or an aggressive and risky approach by letting others loot for you and finding early eliminations. Now that we know what the early game is, what should we be looking out for during this stage? First things first, being contested. The first realization players make when landing is whether you're being contested or not, to prepare for the upcoming possible fight. Trios like to try to force your opponent into the more disadvantageous position cut off from your potential. Either they have to make a desperation push, or they're stuck with less loot where you can easily clean up. That's just the beginning, as even though it starts off high intensity with all the different POIs being contested, it quickly slows down as the rotations begin to expose you. Looting doesn't end here, and most competitive players will have a loot pack, which optimizes their possibility for finding increasing mobility and wrecking upgrades. Thanks to the new data map feature in the replay mode, you can study these loot packs and rotations quite easily these days. So go check that out on any replay from the Fortnite Champion Series by going to the compute tab and finding your favorite player. You'll vary from game to game, but generally, you're moving the mid-game around the middle to end of second zone. The mid-game is the calm before the storm. Before the storm circle gets too small, it forces the engagements. Most players' goals aren't positional, but in some cases, depending on how the early game went, you again have to strike a balance, this time between looting and farming, or going for the best position. Looting could include playing extremely aggressive to earn yourself other players' loot. In trios, it's much harder to play that aggressive playstyle, since fights take longer and cost more. You want to be efficient with This is why you'll see a lot of the top players look directly for center zone in the mid-game. When you're in the center zone, you end up giving yourself the most chance of being in the next storm circle when it gets revealed. You'll then have to go less distance and thus spend less materials. Finally, the end game, the most exciting, hectic, thrilling, and difficult part of competitive Fortnite. Experiencing an endgame can be confusing and hard to process, but it will also be one of the most rewarding and fun times to play and watch. This is when you take all the advantages you built in the early game and the mid game and use them to push yourself to a victory royale, and also find as many eliminations as possible. In the current Fortnite Champion Series format, every elimination matters, just like it did in the World Cup. From 6th zone onwards, where the calm from the mid-game explodes into a cacophony of tunneling, mobility usage, and shots being fired, you'll see teams go for the ever-so-advantageous high ground, where they can tunnel very cheaply and have the most opportunity on the rest of the server for elimination, as they have the top-down view. You'll also see teams call out the need to find a good layer, which is away from other players, both above, below, and horizontally from you. You'll see teams desperate for the extra materials to last them through to the full zone closure, going for impact eliminations, where they can top off on resources and power weaponry of their fallen opponents. So, whether you're watching or you're joining us on the field, take stock in the stage of the game. The early game, when you're trying to get the best possible loot while it's still available. The mid game, where you're balancing positioning while maintaining what you built during the early game. And finally, the end game, where you spend all the advantages you set yourself up with to earn the victory royale. Use this to form your game plan in order to earn as many series points weekend after weekend. And maybe next time, we'll be watching and highlighting your top plays. This was BallaTW, and I'll see you in game.
Hey guys, Shadow Wager here, bringing you a break. Flexible and clutch items every trio is utilizing in the Fortnite Champion Series, the Shockwave Grenade. We're going to be taking a look at some of the basics on how it's used and misused at crucial moments in the game, and how to adapt and play against them towards the end game. To get started, let's get a refresher on what shockwaves are and some of the basics of using them. Shockwave grenades are a utility item that drop in stacks of 2, with a maximum stack size of 6. When thrown, the shockwave launches anyone within its tile and a half radius far distances, destroying builds in the process, with the added protection from fall damage for the players who use them. The most effective way to gain maximum distance is to time your jump well with a shockwave right below you, angling yourself above it for higher vertical movement, or towards the side of it in midair for horizontal coverage. If you do use a shockwave to rotate through builds late game, you will only be able to go through about 5 layers of wood, brick, or metal before you come to a stop. When going for height, if you don't get stopped by any opposing player's builds at all, you can reach upwards of 7.5 tiles in height, giving anyone above you a surprise and changing both yours and your enemy's game plan in a split second. Although really easy to understand and use individually, once entering the atmosphere of trios and teamwork, the use of shockwaves enters a whole new dimension. There are deciding factors in win conditions if used properly, allowing for easy positioning and rotations. Using them and sticking together after the landing is efficient and gets your whole trio online ready to fire at a faster rate compared to the rest of the competition. Saving these grenades for later use brings an element of surprise as well, and a level of shock to the whole server. Looking at 8th and 9th zones with densely packed endgames, vertical shockwaves make high ground and mid ground layers crumble, and give patient trios and surviving solos a way to counter long tarps and bases towering above them. Facing off against 3 players usually proves fatal though, as you are vulnerable throughout your whole flight and easily targeted by the trio you're trying to attack. Turbo building walls on the way up from your shockwave can work against this though, but gives your newfound height poor foundation, easily shot out and focused from below. Panicking with shockwaves in your own box and misusing them is always an irreversible mistake during the game, giving you poor positioning split away from your trio, costing you building resources, or ultimately you and your teammates their entire health and shield pool if used at the absolute incorrect moment. To counteract the chaos from shockwaves, new and clean strategies are put in place to negate the negatives and potential mishaps in certain situations. When going for height, separately boxing up before using the shockwaves and going for height then allows you to have power in numbers as 3 players get a vertical rotation together, overwhelming the competition. Discovering new positioning and shockwave throwing angles and targets within your box might keep your trio and teammates closer together when using one shockwave to rotate, saving crucial mats and attracting less attention during your mid-game rotations. You also save your total shockwave count by doing this, allowing for more opportunities to challenge high ground, grief low ground in the endgame, or rotate mid-game. Countermeasures can be taken too, such as keeping a teammate higher than normal, multiple layers above you, as in the event of a vertical shockwave, you still have someone up high who can rain down and support your trio on a retake. Tandy is improve on mistakes, and get better retakes on height when using one of the most versatile items in the game. Keep your team's position in mind while breaking, jumping, and blasting into the air until you get it just right, and who knows, maybe you can have that top play or amazing clutch that saves your team while competing in the FNCS.
What's up, Fortnite fam? So first of all, sorry about that. We had a little bit of issues on our side with the European matches flushing, but there's been a ton of Fortnite action going on this morning anyway, with Middle East wrapping up their first and second heat. So we have the final results, and we're gonna hop into some of the action. And also, I just wanna say, my predictions for Middle East are looking pretty good. I know Z kind of hinted at it, but you can check out on the FN Competitive Twitter and also on the YouTube some of our prediction and our preview piece we were able to go through, and we talked about what some of our predictions particularly in the Middle East and European region are. So make sure you get up to date on that, get what our thoughts and opinions are. But we're going to be hopping into Heat 2, Match 1 of the Middle East region in just a second here. And honestly, I'm excited. It's going to be the first time seeing Middle East in outside of the open tournament format and seeing the top teams really go at it. And honestly, looking at the heats afterward, there are a lot of big changes now up on the board here. You can see there were some differences in the predictions. One, I will say, I was the one who predicted Flame, Prime, and Hunter up there. So swap Zeke and I's names, but otherwise, Klops, Hero Kappa, and Fiesel were the favorites going through. They performed pretty well. You will be seeing them in the Middle East Grand Final tomorrow. However, Flame, Prime, and Hunter were also able to have a positive day in their heat and advance through. So predictions so far are holding steady, and it's going to be exciting once we get in. There is a different style of play, different types of gameplay from all over the regions, but enough from me. I've talked enough. Let's throw it on over to Lupo and Monster as they take you into Middle East Heat 2, Match 1.
Sundown, thank you very much. Just a quick note to those at home. Occasionally we run into issues on the cast. Do your best to not get too worked up about it. You know, there's a lot of things at play here, so you have to imagine a 10-minute break is an insanely short amount of time to recover and get back into the games. As you can see here on your screen, Heat 2 Game 1 of the Middle East region just starting off. Tilted Town, a number of teams dropping down the bottom. Down here, pressure in the bottom and the pump shotgun. An early blue pump shotgun in Tilted Down, as you can see, is honestly one of the most powerful weapons you can get. It just hits so hard for and so many up-close fights, too.
Such a clean shot. And that's one of the perks of landing in Tilted Town. You know you're going to get a blue... You know you're leaving a blue pump, you're leaving with shockwaves, you're guaranteed heals. Like, guaranteed minimal.
Exactly.
Not only that, you're probably going to get yourself some launch pads as well. So this is the place to be, especially if you want to guarantee your loadout. And
yeah, that's...
you stick around just to get back to the lobby. Not much you can do there. You catch one pick, maybe you get a point for your leaderboard, basically, but... Even then, his battle to lose.
You have to hope it's like a solo, otherwise, you know, they're just going to get picked back up almost immediately. It's a tough spot to be in. But yeah, you're saying early game in Tilted has such a refined loot pool. The trade-off of not being able to build, or in some people's mindsets, not having to build, because you know that you can just focus on gun skill and accuracy, is such a big factor in building up an early loot. Just the early loot game is it's huge here. Like
it's actually crazy,
heals like
too.
Crazy. Yep. Everybody's going to come out stacked with a good set of materials, in fact, just because you can pick up all that stuff out of the chest and off of every elimination. If you do get challenged here, it's arguably one of the better spots to drop right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, imagine a game where one of these guys bring that double barrel out of Tilted Town, because there are some rules in play where the double barrel shotgun only spawns in Tilted, but you can even take the weapons out of the place as well. And
third time's a charm. There we go.
I was going to say, he's having a little bit of a struggle there, trying to get up and over. He's
got to track down that space bar. It runs away sometimes. Unless they're playing on controller, I guess. My apologies. Controller gang, love you.
If anything, Controller Gang has the best movement we've seen so far. These guys can go 360 on the...
Clearly you don't watch my stream, Monster. I appreciate it, though. Yeah.
But all right, now we're looking at Happy Hamlet here. A little bit of a standoff. Moon, Minzu, and Kinji here have that high ground. There's 3 teams here.
The prediction from 4 of the 5 of us, one of the players, Klops, going down on the feet up top there. You hate to see that.
And if I had to guess, I actually did a Middle Eastern VOD review. They land towards Junk Junction, so they must have had some kind of problems over at Haunted Hills, but we'll talk about that in just a bit here as Kenji uses a valuable shockwave to try and take the high ground here, and he is going to get chipped just a little bit. And such a nice pinch going on right here. And this is one of our newer competitive regions, so you know, a little bit of catch-up, right, to catch up to the rest of the competitive scene, per se.
I wouldn't even say that, honestly, because some of these players are so good, Monster. I mean, we've even watched each other grow very quickly playing the game just from watching these competitive experiences. You have opportunities like this. Look at that. Kiji immediately flicks up, gets the knockdown info, who's trying to shockwave from, over the top. But you have to understand, these players in the Middle East region have been asking for their own region for quite a long time, so you know they've been watching the competitive experience between all these other regions. That kind of learning has to have happened big time.
That was a filthy little ramp edit right there to catch AZ2M. And yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on, is that they were held back for so long because of the ping differences, right?
Yep.
But now having their own region, a lot of it has, you know, a lot of these players have found a little bit of remedy in that factor as well. So good for them. We see new faces come up and have their moment. Pretty much catch a little highlight here today.
KG picking up the revive right there on Minzu. Knock from the middle of that fight. A valiant trade, though. Honestly, if your team only suffers a single knockdown, you pick up those 3 eliminations, I'd say that's 100% worth it. Those bubble shields in rotation out. Team moving up on top of the hill.
And not side.
Lucky landing.
He was actually hit with a little headshot right there, ripped apart all of his shield. Now forced only down to bandages, and this is a battle that they have to take on their heels here. And I like what they're doing. They're backing up as a squad, trying to use this time to also gather some mats in the process. This team is not letting up. You have the NL squad right here, Nella, Easy, and Saya Zine right here. Or Saya's Ren, excuse me. And they're coming in with a push. They're still fully shielded up for the most part.
Now we get the ultimate high ground right now. Gonna have to fight out one player all the way to the top. Shots coming from the third party right there. Looks like a teammate trying to knock down that build as they're pushing up. Side, ultimate high ground, looking down from above. Little explode from underneath. Gonna have to build against that. Waiting for the peak shot. Look at the timing on that. Very last second before getting to the pyramid. Gets a ton of big shots. Looking for the last one. There it is. Finds the knock on Izzy. They have the advantage at this point. Picks up that elimination up to 125 total HP. Nella gets knocked. Wild Gamer picking up that elimination. And an RPG in there is going to be huge. Tack shotgun shots back-to-back, finds the third one, and that is a solid 3 eliminations for Psy, while Gamer making it up for the loss of Silence down there in the bottom left corner.
Fighting on the heels right there, and they turn that battle around. Very well done. Not Psy, I've actually had the pleasure with, I'm pretty sure, talking as I've, you know, browsed around the Middle Eastern region. So good to see him pulling up and performing here, as they now are pretty much clear, and they have the zone. They're in the clear. They have the zone. They can get this revive off. So Silence is going to be able to come back in the game as he gets hit up on the reboot van.
Huge value. That being said, the inventory of Psy has 2 green tactical shotguns in there, some bandages, an AR, and that TAC SMG. Lucky landing, looking like it is calm at this point. A lot of builds, but no competition left down here as this trio is going to be able to pick back up, potentially finish looting up down here, farm any materials they can get out of it. They're in the safe zone. Circle still has 38 seconds before it closes, so they're not feeling too much pressure in any way right now. We'll have to see where the next circle goes. This is a good opportunity for them to build up a good buffer, materials, healing, any leftover loot that might be down here, and make their way out in the next safe zone without much issue. Meanwhile, Suber, Sammy, and Dream pushing from outside of the storm.
Yep.
The far east drop here in the desert.
Such a weird place to play as well. The moisty palms where you can't just crouch freely. You have to be very cautious. A lot of the competitive players opting to unbind the crouch just in case. You know, you don't want to make any mistakes there. And honestly, if you do that, you're kind of in the advantage, right? You set yourself up for success, so you don't make any mistakes in PvP. I know myself, I tend to crouch in fights all the time. You don't really realize it till it happens, but
it's a tough break when it does happen, I'll say. Looks like an attempted shockwave to avoid a fight there, but Super does get the pick there. A knockdown is rotating into the storm. Trying to get to safe.
That's going to be a nice little knock there. He's going to replenish his health up. There is a player outside of the storm line. It's going to be his teammate, Will, who's waiting nearby. And you can see over at the other kind of crater there to the left where you can farm up all the stone. That's probably where the rest of that guy's duo is. Most likely, I should say here. But someone does see the rotation. They're pushing on in. We have a trio coming in.
I say now's the time. You have people just coming in from the storm. If you think you're in the better position, pushing is basically a no-brainer. You see here, gonna have to fight to stay in.
You heard the shots outside the storm wave. You figured you might as well push out. These guys are gonna come out with a little bit of health tick. Anything to have that advantage there.
Drop him back.
All right, Sammy, Will, and Super here says, you know what, this is not the battle we want to take. The third party, it actually isn't a third party. They're just pressuring with explodes here, so they want to back up. They want to reset a little bit here.
I don't blame him. You basically started that fight not as a full trio. Sammy was still outside in the storm, and so rotating back away and saying, nah, this is not the fight to take. We're not exactly in the best spot. Plus, if you think about it, they did force that team, the team that applied pressure from inside the safe zone, to burn through some traps. There's some zap traps in the wall, so you've gotten rid of those, cleared those out of the inventory, which is great for later in the game. Ultimately, kind of a win-win. Set of eliminations here.
This is a nice little look right here. You can see those teams that are on the west and north side of the map forced to fight their way down now. Quite a rotation here as the zone seems to be pushing all the way south. So the later you move, the more congested this rotation will be, the harder it will be for you later in the games. You really want to get down there early, especially when a zone favors one side pretty heavily. See competitive players try to rotate nice and early. I'm
looking for Nazir to hit a snipe shot here. He keeps pulling that heavy sniper out and taking a look. Hasn't gone for it yet. I would say position-wise, not the best call. You draw a lot of attention to yourself as you are further outside towards the edge of what is currently safe. So people are probably going to look back and try and stormhold you. But could you imagine Nazir hitting just a crazy snipe right there on the rotation in? They suddenly have advantage of trio versus only 2 left up. They could push through, pick up 3 elims, all the materials, and make their way in the safe zone.
And this is actually very interesting right here. FHD actually opened this battle up with a heavy snipe. They catch the knock, but they don't even collapse to kind of seal the deal. They say, you know what, instead, we're going to focus more on the zone here. They're going to get ahead. So they use that little bit of distraction, downtime, and chaos to get ahead of the zone here. It's probably still going to convert if they can get to the zone first and then turn the battle back around.
Depends on how fast the storm is moving on this edge. They are closer to the short side, so it's moving slower. But yeah, you have a chance maybe for a pickup there, but I think, like you're saying, in that moment they say, yeah, we got the knock, we could push for it, but placement at this point probably more important. You're looking at 26 trios remaining. You don't get the placement points until top 15, and even then, it's only 3. So right now, pushing into the storm, getting to safe, very, very important. You want to try and make it to that top 15 as early as possible. You know, get to a safe spot so you can sit and wait.
You saw a little bit of a storm surge warning there as we're approaching zone 3. You have to be cautious when there's over 70 players to the zone 3 ratio. Storm surge will start to tick. So there's only one trio probably affected right now. This trio here is completely safe, 105 damage above. But anything can happen. They can get pushed by the wrong ones. The other team can jump into a fight. So
at this point, only one player needs to go down too, and we might actually find it. There it is. What a snipe. FHD looking back to the east over there. A quick little flick, a 157 body shot. They're going to try and apply pressure. The teammate up top trying to secure, maybe get a chance for revive. Stinks.
They actually used a lot of resource just to try and keep that player safe right there. He chucked back the zap trap and the stink. So using
Dante. Un pajarito me ha dicho que se acaba de despertar y que estaba durmiendo y que, bueno, que se llama AirVGFX.
¿Qué es?
Que me ha escrito por Instagram diciéndome que sí.
¿Eh?
Es él, ¿no? Les compro. Vale.
¿Nos vamos a acostar?
Tienes... bueno, le pregunto si conoces a Dani.
¿Eh? ¿Qué dices?
La iconic.
Contéstame. ¿Te vienes a acostar?
Iconic.
No te lo veo.
No, abuela, no.
Bueno, bueno. Pues quédate hasta que, como anoche, hasta
Yo
que
hasta la que quiera.
folclore.
Sí, activo y ahora. Y me está escribiendo. Y está yo hablando con él. Cinco, ¿no? Vale, vale. Le voy a vender yo esto y ahora voy. Epic Games, me meto en mi cuenta, canjear código. Voy a cerrar la aplicación de Fortnite por si acaso.